I'd like to introduce you to some more case studies on international equities, and I want to introduce an income note. Case study on international exposure, Vanguard, very well known asset managers, allocation guidance of greater than 20% to international exposure. So, okay, let's see if we can use a note to get better returns than just buying the ETFs or the indexes in our portfolio. That is a worst of note, and it's based on two international indexes. One's on the Euro Stock 50, only covers countries that use the euro, so Switzerland and the UK aren't involved. Morgan Stanley Index, G10 developed countries, not US and Canada. 5-year maturity for this note. It's based on the worst performer. Again, we don't know what the worst performer is going to be. It's going to be one out of the two. And we have the barrier of 30%. And we have participation multiplier of 2.2. Orange line is the worst of note. You can see the note performs quite well in a positive standpoint. You got that protection, and then that sell-off if you bust through that protection at 30%. Let's think, if I have a worst of two different assets, take my money and buy 50% into each one. So this table below assumes the average return on taking 50% into each of the indexes was 10.7. But the structured note had a 28.8% return. The multiplier on this note was 2.2 of the worst. Now, the average has the worst and the best. How is it then that the average times 2.2 is still less than the return of the structured note? The average times the multiplier should be higher than the structured note return, but it's not. Why? Because we have the protection on the structured note, but you would get a negative return on the average. When we looked at it over time, 78% of the time, almost 80%, the structured note was the better investment versus 22% or 20%, substantial difference in the return over the 5 years. Income notes, this particular one is based on a worst of 3 different asset classes, which you already have in your portfolio. The NASDAQ, the Russell 2000, the S&P 500. The term, the maturity is 2 years and 6 months. It's not callable for 6 months. 8.75 annual interest. It's going to pay you monthly, as long as the worst one is greater than 70% of its initial value. This will also be auto-called. The worst one is greater than 100%. You get all your principal back, and the note is over. You also get that month's coupon. Current U.S. Treasury rates are around 3.75%, so you're actually earning a substantial premium.